What is trade? Trade is more than the exchange of goods and services between two countries. Trade occurs whenever two entities, whether that's two people, two businesses, two households, two countries, a business and a household, etc., engage in a mutually beneficial exchange. The key is mutually beneficial, which implies that both entities will be made better off. Consider a trade that a typical college student might make: the sale of their used books. A student brings unwanted books, which have no value to them, to the bookstore and sells them to the bookstore for $150. The student gains $150 from this trade. In the bookstore, what do they gain? Well, the bookstore, they resell those books for $400 to a different student the next semester. So the bookstore gains $250, the difference between the $400 they received for selling those books relative to the $150 they paid to get those books. So the bookstore gains $250, and what about the student who bought those books? Well, that student was willing to pay up to $500, let's say, for those books. So they personally saved themselves $100, or we can think of that as a $100 gain. So in this example, there were two exchanges involving three different entities, two students in the bookstore, all of whom benefited from trading with each other. So this example showed that trade created benefits because each entity put a different value on the books. They all had different preferences. Let's consider another example: ticket scalping. This guy has a ticket to sell because he puts little, if any, value on it. It's very likely that there's a fan out there who is willing and able to buy that ticket at a price that the scalper will accept. The scalper's preferences, in other words, for this ticket differ from the fan's preferences. Because of these differences, the scalper and the fan can both benefit from trade if they can agree on a price that will make both of them better off. You ever wonder why, when you go to the store, you can find kiwis from New Zealand, cheese from England, plum brandy from Croatia, or coffee from Brazil? These foods and spirits are made available to us because of trade. People in the United States are willing and able to pay enough to cover the shipping and handling of foods that are produced overseas. Without trade, we wouldn't be able to indulge in such fine delicacies. The true power of trade is specialization. When people trade, it allows them to specialize in producing one thing rather than trying to produce everything they need. Trade allows for specialization, and specialization increases productivity. Why does trade increase productivity? Trade increases the availability of knowledge, and knowledge increases productivity. Let's go through an example to see why this is so. By specializing in farming, for example, farmers learn a lot more about farming than other people do, so they become better at it. Also, by focusing on that one skill, farmers can afford to invest in large-scale farming machines that are more productive because they are going to produce in far greater quantities than any individual would produce on their own. Now, as far as knowledge increasing productivity, the human brain is limited. And if knowledge is divided across many brains and then trade occurs, we can collectively benefit from more knowledge than any one mind could hold. Consider yourselves. Think about it. What would your standard of living be like if you had to produce all of your own food and clothing? This would require that you have knowledge about growing food, building homes, raising sheep and shearing their wool, or raising cotton and spinning it into thread. This is a lot of knowledge, any one person to handle. And as a result, you can imagine if you personally were responsible for producing everything that you eat and everything that you wear, your standard of living would be very low. So by focusing on one thing, we can collectively benefit from more knowledge than any one mind could hold. If every person in society produced the same thing as their neighbor, the combined knowledge of a society of 1 million people would barely exceed the knowledge of one brain. In an upcoming video, we will see how trade can increase our consumption possibilities through comparative advantage.